Hi guys, welcome back to Outpost 18. My name is Liam. This is Darklight Memento Mori, and today we're going to be looking at the Exorcist Accursed character and the different build options. Now, this might take a while because the Exorcist is so versatile, and I think probably my favourite character out of all the Accursed available, of which there are 8 or 9 if you include the experimental Scorn Accursed that you can take. So, but the Exorcist, he's great. He has access to so many different good skill cards and also miracles, which we're going to talk about, and he has good stats. So on that note, starting off on the stats, he's got 1 melee attack which hits on a 3+, so that's very good, and he's got 1 ranged attack which hits on a 4+, which is okay. His belt size is 4, which is really good, and his initiative is 5, which is pretty decent. So if you go buffing that up later on with a lantern or a tattoo or something, even if you add +2 to that, that's very good. Get that up to 7. His movement is average 4. His sanity is okay, it's 6. It's nothing amazing. However, his stats are pretty average across the board. They're all 3, with the exception of charisma, which is 4, and his charisma stat actually becomes quite useful for some of his miracles. So unlike the Blood Witch, who has access to spells, the Exorcist has access to miracles, which are kind of the same thing, but rather than spending source and potentially hurting yourself, you get access to faith points which you generate, and you spend those to basically enact a miracle. But there's no chance of hurting yourself in the process, unlike with Source and Source Burns. So this is really nice. He's got a couple of special abilities. So whenever the darkness roll is a 1 to 4, you generate faith. So you gain 1 faith point every turn on a 1 to 4. And it says you may only hold 2 faith points for each charisma point you have. So you can go up to 8, so again there's another reason there to boost your charisma up, because you will be using faith a lot with this character. He can't take actions marked with a skull, and he must always take actions where the Lady Vita symbol is present, but that's no bad thing. And he can't take spells, but you've got access to miracles, so it's a bit of a moot point. And he can't use anything with the keyword cursed. However, he starts with a load of items. He starts with a demonic femur, which is actually, for a bone, is better than the Revenant Shiv. He starts with the Libro Sanctum, which is like his kind of holy Bible book thing, and he also gets an old censer, which I think produces an aura of 1 square, and any other characters in that square get +1 to their armour value, including the Exorcist. And on that note, the Exorcist is the only character who has an additional inventory slot, if you like, where you can actually attach sensors. And there are a lot of good sensors in this game which do all kind of weird and wonderful things. One of the best ones, actually, I think it allows him to generate an additional faith point every turn, which is great. I think that's a sensor. There's also some fantastic helmets that you can get for the Exorcist, weapons and armour. There's like a whole suite of rare items which are just designed purely for this character, and they're all pretty damn good. So if you find any of those, they're well worth putting on this character, as opposed to selling them for money or using them for gold or whatever. So those are the stats. There's loads of cards here to go through. So this in-depth look at the Exorcist might go on for a bit longer than I would have hoped, just because there's a lot to go through. Now, looking at the skills, the first one, and it's just pure madness if you don't take this, you really have to take this. It's a level 1 skill called Devoted, and at the start of the round you will always receive 1 faith point, even if the darkness roll is a 5 or 6. So it's no longer on a 1 to 4. You're always going to get a faith point, and that's an amazing skill, because you'll use faith all the time, and it's really quite frustrating when you get a succession of 5s and 6s on Darkness Roll and you don't generate any fades. So for me, it's probably the first skill that you want to take. And on that note, the Exorcist generates a defensive miracle, an offensive miracle, and a healing miracle at the start of every dungeon, and it's a random draw from those 3 decks. And they're not particularly big decks, there's probably 5 or 6 cards in each of those decks. There's a very good tattoo you can take, which you probably want to take as soon as you get to the first town, which is called the Sacred Page, and that allows you to take 1 additional miracle for each dungeon, and you can choose which deck you put it out of. So if you want to go for an offensive Exorcist, then you can effectively take 2 cards from the offensive deck of miracles, and 1 from the other 2 healing and defensive, or maybe you take 2 healing. There are lots of kind of build options for this character. None of them are particularly bad, frankly. He's really good. But if you go down the healing route, then you're going to have a much easier time of this game, because this guy can just spread healing around really well. So if, for example, you take this tattoo, you take 2 healing miracles straight off the bat. As soon as you get past that first town sequence, you're going to have a character which can just dish out healing all over the place, and it will only get better from there on in. This is it's a supporting character, but also it's very good on the front line. He can wear heavy armour without any problems, so you can just tank him up with armour as you would the Black Knight, and he can just take it. So he's a great party player, but you can also play him solo. He's one of the few characters in Darklight who will stand up to solo play, along with the Necromancer and probably the Black Knight and the Nephilim, and probably the Outcast as well if you take the right skills. So he's very good. Carrying on with the skills, so you have Hand of the Goddess. So this is a level 4 skill. If you cast at least 1 miracle during your turn, you'll gain +1 melee or ranged attack. It is absolutely madness not to take that skill when you get the chance to. You're going to be casting miracles anyway, so that basically just gives you an extra attack. So why would you not take that? It's so good. You can quite easily get this character up to 3 attacks, I think, just through levelling out, which at some point there's a kind of level break where he gets an extra melee and an extra range. That's going to give him another +1 as well, so you'll be pushing out 3 attacks quite easily. This one is also quite good, Righteous Scholar, which is level 2. If you're unhappy with the miracles you have gained at the start of the dungeon, you may discard 1 or more and redraw them out of their respective decks. To be fair, there aren't many bad miracles, they're pretty good, so maybe you could get away with not taking this, but it is really useful. I took this in the last time I played the Exorcist, and it was great. It meant that I was always going into dungeons with that tattoo. I was just immediately taking 4 miracles. I would take 2 healing, defensive and offensive, and if I didn't like what I picked, I would just use that to redraw. It's really useful. So those 3 skills there, I can't recommend those enough. The other skills, it really depends on what sort of character you want to play. So we're going to look at the healing skills first of all, which are amongst my favourites. So you have Divine, now let's start with Merciful Goddess. So you may take 1 more healing miracle. Now there's one of these cards for each of the different decks, whether it's defensive, offensive or healing. So you probably need to decide what type of Exorcist you want to play, whether it's going to be an offensive one, healing or defensive. There isn't really a bad option, but like I say, if you go down the healing route, you're going to find it much easier for you and your party. So if you take this thing, you could go up to 3 healing miracles straight away and have an offensive and a defensive one, along with the the redraw over there. So with these 4 skills alone, you can pretty much have your pick of the deck. Basically, you'll have an Exorcist which can just heal your way out of most bad situations. There are healing miracles in there which do party heals, ones which are focused on targeting individual characters, and then some where you slay demons and you get life back, and they're all pretty good, to be fair. So that's well worth considering. We also have, let's just move this over a bit, you can see that. We also have Purification, which is level 4, so reduce the faith point cost of all of your healing miracles by 1. Again, I think you get this option for defensive and offensive. I don't think you'll need that, frankly, for any of the respective decks, because once you start kicking this guy out with gear, you're probably going to start generating a lot more faith points through items and skills and stuff. So I don't think it's necessary. It's not bad at all, but there are just so many skills to choose from that you have to be a bit picky. Then we've got Divine Mercy. For every 2 healing points you cause with a healing miracle, you may heal your target by 1 more. Again, it's great, but I don't think it's necessary. You're going to have to be so choosy with this character because there are just so many good skills and you can't take them all. In reality, in Darklight, you're probably going to take a character up to level 6 or 7 if you play through the main campaign, do a few side quests. It's unlikely you're going to hit level 10, and when you start to get to level 7, you create these kick-ass characters. If they survive that long, you'll probably want to reset and play another character. So the first 4 skills are key. You may or may not get a 5th or a 6th. Depends how long you play for. So looking at the offensive ones, so you get the same deal. You can take an extra offensive miracle if you want to. You can reduce the cost of offensive miracles by 1 if you want to. And this one is exceptionally good. You may equip 2-handed melee weapons in 1 hand, but cannot deal dual wield attacks. This is very good because it's going to allow you to get that 2d6 damage going, and you need that if you want to take down demons when they're getting to endurance 7, 8, 9, 10. You need 2d6 damage plus your strength plus whatever extra damage the weapon's giving you. So for me, Divine Might is definitely a card worth considering. So those 5 there are pretty damn good. And if we look at the defensive path, again, you can reduce the cost of defensive miracles by 1. You can take an extra defensive miracle if you want to. And you also have Shield of the Faithful. Whenever suffering wounds, you may discard a number of faith points equal to the number of wounds you wish to avoid. That's good because it's getting rid of wounds. It's not an armor thing or anything like that, or an evasion thing. It's literally just nullifying wounds. And it's a good skill, but there are so many good skills to choose from. So for me, I probably wouldn't take it because there are other things I'd rather take, but it's a good skill. Then we get on to the Exorcist book, which is his Libro Sanctum, which he starts off with. Now this, I gather, is what he reads from and generates his miracles. But you can also use it as a weapon if you want to, and it can be quite a good weapon. However, if you invest in his book and turn it into a good weapon, you lose a whole load of skill cards to doing that. And you can just go find yourself a double-handed weapon and use Divine Might to go stick it in 1 hand. So personally I think that's a better option. However, we'll go through them anyway. So you've got the good book, so that allows you to reinforce the Libro Sanctum, turning it to a melee weapon. If used in dual wield attacks, you will not suffer the -1 to hit. So it does 1d6 damage plus 1 damage plus an extra damage to demons. So it's great. You can dual wield with this. You can have a hammer in one hand, you can have a good book in the other one, and it's going to get you your 2d6 damage. So it is good. However, you will never be holding a shield if you do this. So for me, I possibly would rather have that Divine Might and get a double-handed weapon in one hand, freeing up my other hand for a shield or something else which is giving me buffs, and also not spending skill cards on basically creating a weapon. But they're not bad. You can also, at level 2, your Libero Sanctum will now do better attack, so the attack damage 1d6 plus 1 and plus 3 damage to demons, which is really nice. Level 3 Evil's Weakness, your Libero Sanctum, it gets even better. Attack 1d6 plus 2 plus 1d6 damage to demons. So it can become pretty disgusting, frankly. You can kick out a lot of damage if you want to go down this route. But if you do that, you will be missing out on so many other good skills. So it's a tricky one. It's a nice option. They're not bad at all. I don't think many of these cards are going to go into the poo-poo pile today, or poop pile. It's just what path do you want to take? Do you want to go defensive, offensive, healing? Do you want to reinforce your book and kick out tons of damage? Or do you want to do what I suggest, where you get a double-handed sword in one hand, get a shield in the other, so you know, really deck him out with armour, make him tanky, but also doing good damage, and chuck out healing? For me, it's like the path of the Juggernaut sort of thing. He's not going anywhere. You stick him on the front line and nothing's going past him. So I like that option myself. Then we get to some of the miscellaneous skills. Again, none of these are bad, not that I recall at least. They just don't necessarily fit well into a build because there are better cards to choose from. So Holy Will, you may spend 1 faith point per turn to regain stamina. It's not bad because you're, unlike with I think the Blood Witch has similar things, but her source is crucial to casting spells. This chap's going to be casting maybe a couple of miracles a turn. He won't be going absolutely nuts like the Blood Witch. He'll probably be casting like 3, maybe 4 spells. This guy will only do a couple, so maybe you want to use some of those excess faith points to generate some more stamina. Flagellum, once per turn, you may self-inflict 2 wounds to gain 2 faith points. I suppose you could then get those wounds back through healing, but then you need to spend faith points to do the healing, so there's a bit chicken and egg this one. There may well be, if you do the maths on it, there might be a route you can take where that actually works out as beneficial, but I don't think it's necessary given everything else you can pick. Then we have Path of Justice. Whenever you kill a demon, gain 2 faith points. That is good, especially if you're going to go down the Libero Sanctum route and kick out tons of damage with your book and a weapon, because you'll always be killing something, in which case you'll always be getting that double faith return. It's still quite good anyway, because he has access to plenty of miracles that one-shot stuff or do room clearance, so it's not bad, but I think there are better cards. That's obviously just my opinion. Sacred Disciple, you may equip 2 senses at the same time. This for me is a very good one. That would probably be my 6th choice. We're on 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because if you can turn your Exorcist into a Christmas tree and have a load of baubles hanging off him, then that's great, because the sensors are really good. I like having the sensor which gives you extra armour, and it's not just for you, it's for you and the party. The sensor that I think allows you to generate more faith. There's one that causes wounds to any demon standing next to you, and I think there's one that allows you to kick out more damage and whatnot, so it may even be the starting one. But there's about 4 or 5 different types of sensor, and they're all pretty good, to be fair. So being able to carry 2, I think it's really good. So I would probably take that myself. And then we have Seal of the Living. So whenever you have your maximum faith point allowance and happen to gain more, instead of wasting them, you can use them to remove one wound from yourself. It's okay, but if you take some of these healing miracles, you're going to find that's a moot point and you won't really need it. And I suggest actually you just burn through your faith and start doing funky things with these miracle cards, which we're now going to look at very quickly. I'm not going to go through all of these, because there's a few. 2, 4, it's about 6 in each deck. But I'm just going to scan through these and just mention some particularly epic ones. So Breath of Life is actually very good, 7 faith to cast, so quite high cost, but you can give an ally in line of sight or yourself 2d6 wounds, heal them by 2d6 wounds, or you can revive a dead ally and restore them by 1d6 wounds. It's great, it's really good. Forget your bandages, you don't need them. Forget the cursed heart even, you don't need that. You can just use that, point it at someone and off they go. Seed of Light, heal 1 wound from yourself or 1 accursed in line of sight for every point of charisma you have. But this only costs 3 faith points, so if you're bumping up your charisma, which I suggest you do anyway, because a lot of these things benefit from charisma, this cheapy 3 point miracle actually becomes quite good if you're suddenly giving someone 5 or 6 life back, just because you increased your charisma stat by 1. And there's a really good cloak you can take, it's called a mantle. 1 less evasion than a cape, I think, so it gives you like 3 to evasion instead of 4, but it gives you +1 to charisma. It's an item that you should definitely look to take because it benefits these miracles. It's really, really good. This is good, Purification. Each demon in line of sight suffers 1d6 wounds, roll separately. This costs you 5 faith, nothing wrong with that, that's great. Room clearance. And it's wounds as well, it's not damage, so just taking off wounds is amazing. You just go straight through that endurance 7 or even 10, 11 stuff. Life's Embrace, heal every accursed on the same map tile as you by d6 plus charisma. So you wear a mantle, charisma goes up to 5, you sink a level of charisma in. When you level up, suddenly you're 6, so you're doing 1d6 plus 6 life heal to everyone in the same map tile, which for 6 faith points is bloody amazing. And if you take the card which reduces the cost of healing miracles by 1 and drops it down to 5, it's even cheaper. There's just nothing bad here. What's this one? Thy will be done. That's not so great, that one. We'll just gloss over that one because I just want to mention the particularly good ones. Forbidden Word is good. Demon in line of sight will suffer 1d6 charisma, 1d6 plus charisma wounds, and you may heal a number of wounds from yourself equal to. You may heal a number of wounds from yourself or an ally in line of sight equal to the wounds suffered by the target. So again, that's brilliant. 1d6 plus you get your charisma level up to 6, and that's straight wounds on your target, and then you get healing back. I mean, these cards are just amazing, frankly. This character for me is a character you just absolutely must take, along with the Outcast. They're so good. In fact, if you're going to play 2 characters, I would say Exorcist and Outcast, because the Exorcist can hold the front line, especially if you tank him up in armour, and the Outcast can just sit behind him and just decimate stuff. So those 2 characters will get you through levels. If you play them right, they will get you through levels quite comfortably as well. Yes, it's a hard game, but those 2 characters are excellent. This one is Retribution. It's okay, but we're not going to particularly shout about that one, I don't think. What's that? It will heal all accursed in line of sight by 1d6, so that's okay. Those ones are better. What do you want to look at here? So on the defensive miracles, I'm not going to go through all of these. I mean, there's various shields and things like that in there, but I think the one to really point out is probably Hold Evil. this is as good as manipulation, which the Blood Witch has access to, or any spellcaster has access to. One demon in line of sight will be unable to move on their upcoming turn. They will also grant +1 to hit to their attacker until the start of your next turn. Only one demon can be held at a time. I mean, this just decimates bosses, and it costs 5 faith points. Any boss, you're just going to fix it in place. It can't do anything. It's on +1 to hit. An outcast isn't going to nail it with ranged attacks. Probably hit another 2+. It's just solid. This will get you out of trouble time and time and time again. So if you get Hold Evil, it's worth taking. Yeah, these other ones are good. They will, protect you in various different ways. Like Faith Armor, I quite like, where you cast on yourself and you ignore up to 4 wounds. So it gives you a 4 wound shield, and it's great. And there's lots of little things like that in there. But Hold Evil for me is the one to watch out for in that pile. And actually, the reason I tend to specialise in the healing is because there's only like one healing miracle in that entire deck, whereas it's quite the reverse on the defensive deck. There's a couple in there which are great, like Hold Evil, and the rest are just nah. So for me, if you're going to specialise, I would probably specialise on healing, because you're guaranteed to get good cards. Even if you go that setup I talked about earlier, where you take a tattoo and gives you an extra miracle, and you take 2 healing and 1 from offensive and defensive, you'll get a pretty good spread of miracles, in my opinion. And then we've got the offensive ones. Again, I'm not going to go through all of these, but there are some kick-ass ones. I mean, if you take Bolt of Justice, which is 7 faith points, it's basically a railgun. So you fire this thing off, any demon standing within the squares intersected by this line. So you draw a line from you to wherever, going to suffer 1d6 plus charisma again, wounds. And all of this stuff is wounds. It's not damage, it is wounds. So and that's what makes them so disgustingly good. On the downside, however, all of these cards affect demons. These cards, this is a demonologist. So if he's fighting humans like cultists and stuff like that, that's where he starts to struggle a little bit, because he doesn't get all these extra buffs and stuff. Because they frequently mention versus demons, so something to watch out for. Or if you're fighting animals like crawlers, or the wormy looking ones. I've forgotten the name. The Seekers, is it? I think. These effects aren't going to kick in, so just worth bearing that in mind. But even some of the cheapy ones like Smite, 4 faith points, deal the following attack to 1 demon in line of sight. So this is an additional attack. Roll a number of, the same with Bolt of Justice, roll a number of d6 equal to your charisma value. So let's say it's 6. For every 4+ you score, you're going to be dealing 2 wounds again. So chucking out 6 dice, you're probably going to land 3, and that's 6 wounds. Very good for 4. And remember, if you're casting any of these miracles, there's that skill over there. Is it the Hand of Lady Vita or something like that? It's going to give you an additional attack, be it melee or ranged. So, and there's one here. I think you can even you can choose a demon and get it to fight for you, I think. Holy Flames. This one is brilliant. Blessed attacks. It only costs 3. Immediately deal 1 additional melee attack against demons with +1 to hit. That's amazing. So you can take your Exorcist up to 4 attacks quite easily. I mean, you start off with 1, you're going to pick up a second attack by the time you get to level 3 or 4 or whatever. If you've got that skill over there we talked about, you use this to get an extra attack, and by virtue of the fact that you've used this, it's a miracle, you've cast a miracle or invoked a miracle, you're therefore going to get another attack off that card over there, and you're going up to 4. This guy can actually do quite a bit of damage if you set him up right, he has to have a good weapon. If he's just got like a basic sword or mace, it's not going to be good enough. It's 1d6 plus 2 or whatever it is, plus his strength won't be good enough. You've got to get some kind of 2d6 weapon into his hand somehow, and the might, hand of might, path of might, whatever, will let you do that. Or you go down a good book route, but then you're not going to get as many skill cards in other branches. But in any event, I mean, you can see all the cards here. There aren't really any crappy cards. They're great. This is a really good character, and I rate this character a lot. I think you're crazy just not to take it and pull it into your party. So Exorcist, Outcast, they're so good. And then consider your remaining two. So for me, actually, the Blood Witch is quite good, because the Blood Witch allows you to manipulate the playing field. And with the time meddling I talked about in a previous video, that's just so good. Combine it with the Exorcist here, who's kind of defending the entire team or healing them, and the Outcast is just leveling stuff. With those three, it can just be amazing when played right together. So that's my view of the Exorcist. Hope you've enjoyed this, and just let us know your thoughts and whatnot in the comments.